In the gentle hush of the night sky, where stars whisper secrets older than time itself and your weary mind seeks the soft embrace of slumber, imagine lying beneath the same canopy that ancient eyes once traced with quiet wonder, constellations charted not in haste, but in peaceful communion with the cosmos. What if those early stargazers, from Babylonian priests to Mayan shamans, held the key to unlocking a profound tranquility, their observations a soothing rhythm that could guide your racing thoughts to rest? Tonight, as insomnia's shadows lengthen, let this be your ultra hook. Unlock the secrets of the ancient night sky and discover how our ancestors found peace in the stars. This isn't just history, it's a tranquil journey back to humanity's earliest cosmic connection, designed to gently guide you into a restful, dream-filled sleep. Close your eyes, dear seeker of serenity, and let the velvet veil of the universe enfold you, as we drift through the relaxing facts of ancient celestial observations, each one a luminous lullaby crafted to ease the soul into repose. Mara Voss had not felt the mercy of deep sleep in 5 cycles of the moon, not since the observatory's dome cracked under a storm's fury in the hills of Crete, leaving her 38 and adrift in Athens' neon-veiled nights. An astrophysicist by calling, she spent her days in the National Observatory's shadowed vaults, charting exoplanets through digital lenses that blurred the boundary between star and screen, her nights a vigil of ceaseless constellations spinning in her mind like unmoored galaxies. Her apartment in Plaka was a sanctuary of sleeplessness, star charts pinned to walls like unanswered prayers, herbal teas steeping eternally on the stove, and a hammock strung beneath a skylight that framed the mocking twinkle of urban skies.
She cradled the tablet in her palms, its weight a grounding force like the Earth's own rotation, and felt the cuneiform's ridges yield facts as soothing as a mother's murmur. In the cradle of Mesopotamia, some 5,000 years ago, the Babylonians, those quiet sentinels of the Tigris-Euphrates, erected ziggurats not as towers of hubris, but as stairways to celestial serenity, platforms where priests in linen robes reclined on reed mats, gazing upward in meditative vigil. Enuma Anu Enlil, their astronomical diaries etched on clay like this very tablet, recorded lunar eclipses and planetary alignments, not with frantic urgency, but with a rhythmic patience that mirrored the cosmos's own unhurried breath. Venus rising in the east as Inanna's gentle awakening, a sign not of war, but of fertile fields and restful nights. Mara traced a glyph for Mul, the star, and imagined those ancient observers, their eyes softened by the desert's. She cradled the tablet in her palms, its weight a grounding force like the Earth's own rotation, and felt the cuneiform's ridges yield facts as soothing as a mother's murmur. In the cradle of Mesopotamia, some 5,000 years ago, the Babylonians, those quiet sentinels of the Tigris-Euphrates, erected ziggurats not as towers of hubris, but as stairways to celestial serenity, platforms where priests in linen robes reclined on reed mats, gazing upward in meditative vigil. Enuma Anu Enlil, their astronomical diaries etched on clay like this very tablet, recorded lunar eclipses and planetary alignments not with frantic urgency, but with a rhythmic patience that mirrored the cosmos's own unhurried breath. Venus rising in the east as Inanna's gentle awakening, a sign not of war, but of fertile fields and restful nights. Mara traced a glyph for Mul, the star, and imagined those ancient observers, their eyes softened by the desert's cooling dusk, using water clocks calibrated to the drip of Euphrates dew to time the heavens' slow waltz. Each drop a reminder that time flowed not in torrents, but in tranquil streams. These facts whispered relaxation. The Babylonians divided the sky into 12 zodiac houses, a harmonious wheel that aligned human fate with stellar calm. Scorpio's sting softened to a guardian's watch. Taurus's horns curved like a cradle's arc. In the quiet of their observatories, priests would chant low hymns to Shamash, the sun god retiring to his nightly repose, their voices blending with the river's lap to create a white noise older than any modern machine, lulling the community to sleep under blankets woven from date palm fibers, scented with myrrh from caravan trails that echoed the Milky Way's path. As Athens' nocturnal hum faded to a distant purr, Mara delved deeper into the tablet's lore, her eyelids growing heavy with the weight of ancient peace. The Babylonians' Mull-Oppen, a compendium of starry wisdom from 1000 BCE, detailed the heliacal rising of Sirius, Hundstern to the Germans, Sopdet to Egyptians, a star's first appearance before dawn that signaled the Nile's flood. But to the Mesopotamians heralded the harvest's hush, a time for communal rest after labor's toil. These observers, gentle scholars in mud-brick towers, used gnomon shadows, simple sticks planted in temple courtyards, to measure solstices, their lengthening and shortening, a natural metronome for the body's rhythms, aligning sleep cycles with the sun's serene arc. Mara pictured them, families gathering at dusk on ziggurat terraces, children pointing to Orion's belt as the hunter laid down his bow for the night. Parents recounting tales of Gilgamesh's quests ending in dream-filled repose, the air thick with the scent of blooming tamarisk that bloomed under lunar light, a natural sedative wafting through the city like a collective sigh. One soothing fact unfurled like a scroll. The Babylonians mapped 36 decans, star groups rising every 10 days, each a guardian of the night's thirds, ensuring that observations were brief, meditative pauses rather than exhaustive vigils, allowing the watcher to retire with the assurance that the cosmos kept its own quiet watch. In this rhythm, insomnia yielded. Priests would retire to reed huts, lulled by the Euphrates' murmur, their dreams informed by the stars' positions, turning wakeful worries into celestial stories of eternal balance. The tablet's warmth seeped into Mara's palms as the city's lights dimmed, revealing stars through her skylight that echoed those ancient maps. In Egypt's contemporaneous skies, the priests of Heliopolis, those serene surveyors of the Nile's floodplains, erected obelisks as solar gnomon, their granite tips gilded to catch Ra's first ray, marking equinoxes with shadows that fell like gentle invitations to rest. The Djoser Pyramid's step design, aligned to the cardinal points, observed through simple Merkhet instruments, plumb lines and sighting sticks, created sacred spaces where pharaohs could commune with the stars in meditative solitude, the night's cool air a balm for royal restlessness. Mara felt her breath slow to match the imagined cadence of those observations. A priest at Karnak, reclining on a mat of papyrus, noting the heliacal rise of Sopdet to predict the inundation, a flood not of chaos but of fertile renewal, a cosmic signal to release the day's labors into night's embrace. These facts soothed like a herbal poultice. The Egyptians divided the night into 12 hours of varying length, observed through decan stars rising on the horizon. Each hour a chapter in a nocturnal book where the soul wandered freely in dreams, guarded by the jackal-headed Anubis, whose constellations ensured no spirit strayed too far from repose. In the quiet temples, astronomers would whisper invocations to Thoth, god of wisdom and the moon, their voices blending with the Nile's lap to create a symphony of serenity, lulling the community to sleep under canopies woven from lotus fibers, scented with frankincense that bloomed under lunar light, a natural sedative wafting through the valley like a collective sigh. As the first gray of pre-dawn touched her window, Mara cradled the tablet closer, its cuneiform yielding more tranquil truths from the Indus Valley's ancient watchers. In Mohenjo-Daro's brick observatories, circa 2500 BCE, the Harappans, those gentle artisans of urban harmony, aligned their streets to the solstices, their great bath a pool reflecting the moon's phases, a site for communal stargazing where families reclined on terracotta ledges, tracing the lunar cycle with fingers dipped in henna, a ritual that synchronized community sleep with the heavens' rhythm. These observations, etched on seals of steatite soft as whispered promises, mapped the Pleiades' rise to herald the monsoon, a rain not of tumult, but of renewal's hush, allowing villagers to retire with the assurance of bountiful fields and peaceful dreams. Mara imagined them, elders in cotton dhotis, children at their knees, noting the alignment of Sirius with the Great Bath's outlet, a simple hydraulic marvel that drained into the Indus, its flow a metaphor for releasing daily tensions into night's current. One relaxing fact bloomed like a lotus. The Harappans used water clocks filled with scented oils to time the stars' transit, each drop a reminder that time was fluid, not rigid, encouraging a meditative pause that eased into slumber under roofs of baked clay, insulated with reeds that rustled like the cosmos' own breath. The tablet's glow seemed to dim with the rising sun, but Mara's drowsiness deepened, the ancient facts a bridge from vigilance to verdure. Across the Pacific, the Mayans of Chichen Itza, those serene scribes of the Yucatan, built El Caracol, a snail-shaped observatory aligned to Venus's extremes, its windows framing the planet's helical risings as Kukulkan's feathered serpent descending in light, a spectacle not of fear, but of cyclical calm, signaling harvest rest. These observers, in feathered cloaks soft as Quetzal down, used cross sticks to sight the equinox sun slanting through temple doorways, creating shadows that danced like gentle invitations to dream. Mara felt her eyelids flutter, sinking to the imagined rhythm of those observations. A priest on the pyramid's summit, reclining on a mat of woven sisal, noting the zenith passage when the sun stood directly overhead, casting no shadows, a moment of perfect balance where the soul could release its burdens into the midday hush, now transposed to her midnight vigil. As the first gray of pre-dawn touched her window, Mara cradled the tablet closer, its cuneiform yielding more tranquil truths from the Indus Valley's ancient watchers. In Mohenjo-Daro's brick observatories, circa 2500 BCE, the Harappans, those gentle artisans of urban harmony, aligned their streets to the solstices, their great bath a pool reflecting the moon's phases, a site for communal stargazing where families reclined on terracotta ledges, tracing the lunar cycle with fingers dipped in henna, a ritual that synchronized community sleep with the heavens' rhythm. These observations, etched on seals of steatite, soft as whispered promises, mapped the Pleiades' rise to herald the monsoon, a rain not of tumult, but of renewal's hush, allowing villagers to retire with the assurance of bountiful fields and peaceful dreams. Mara imagined them, elders in cotton dhotis, children at their knees, noting the alignment of Sirius with the Great Bath's outlet, a simple hydraulic marvel that drained into the Indus, its flow a metaphor for releasing daily tensions into night's current. One relaxing fact bloomed like a lotus. The Harappans used water clocks filled with scented oils to time the stars' transit, each drop a reminder that time was fluid, not rigid, encouraging a meditative pause that eased into slumber under roofs of baked clay, insulated with reeds that rustled like the cosmos' own breath.
The tablet's glow seemed to dim with the rising sun, but Mara's drowsiness deepened, the ancient facts a bridge from vigilance to verdure. Across the Pacific, the Mayans of Chichen Itza, those serene scribes of the Yucatan, built El Caracal, a snail-shaped observatory aligned to Venus's extremes, its windows framing the planet's heliactical risings as Kukulkan's feathered serpent descending in light, a spectacle not of fear, but of cyclical calm, signaling harvest rest. These observers, in feathered cloaks soft as Quetzal down, used cross sticks to sight the equinox sun slanting through temple doorways, creating shadows that danced like gentle invitations to dream. Mara felt her eyelids flutter, sinking to the imagined rhythm of those observations. A priest on the pyramid's summit, reclining on a mat of woven sisal, noting the zenith passage when the sun stood directly overhead, casting no shadows. A moment of perfect balance where the soul could release its burdens into the midday hush, now transposed to her midnight vigil.
These observations, passed orally in Mele-Oli, tracked Hokulea, the star of gladness, rising to guide voyages, a sign not of peril, but of homeward hush, allowing sailors to rest under sails of woven pandanus, lulled by the waves' murmur that echoed the star's silent song. Mara closed her eyes, the hammock swaying like that ancient canoe, and for the first time in moons, sleep approached not as stranger, but as star-guided friend. The ancient observations, a constellation of calm mapping her path to dream's horizon. The clay tablet beneath Mara's cheek cooled to the exact temperature of a Cretan dawn, and the Euphrates folded itself into a single silver ripple that slipped between her lips like warm starlight. She opened her eyes inside the moonlit observatory of ancient Rhodes, but the bronze astrolabes had melted into sleeping swans, the marble floors had turned to soft sand, and the night sky above was a perfect sphere of Hipparchus's own making. No telescope, only the gentle curve of his open palm. Hipparchus himself reclined on a cedar bench shaped like a crescent moon, barefoot, wearing a linen himation the color of wet parchment, eyes soft as the first glaze of midnight oil. He carried a single goose feather dipped in liquid starlight and a tiny crystal vial filled with powdered lapis skimmed from the Aegean at the exact moment the Pleiades sink. "Tonight," he whispered, voice the hush of parchment brushing parchment, "we measure only the distances that forget to matter." He dipped the feather, touched it to the vial, and painted a tiny blue arc on the air above Mara's heart. The arc trembled, rose, and became a miniature almagest no larger than a child's hand, its pages fluttering open to reveal a single sentence written in mirror script. "Sleep is the only circle that never needs a center." Hipparchus caught the book on the tip of his finger, rolled it gently until it became a tiny Ptolemy no larger than a sparrow, wrapped in a cloak of midnight blue, and cradled by a sleeping swan whose wings had turned into pages of warm vellum.
He placed the tiny Ptolemy on Mara's collarbone. It sighed once, curled against her skin, and began to rock her with the rhythm of the precession of the equinoxes, slowed to the pace of a grandmother's lullaby. He opened a cedar box and spilled a handful of smaller arcs onto the sandy floor. Each arc landed without sound and became another star of the Hipparchian catalog, until the observatory was full of soft blue points floating in slow motion like fireflies too sleepy to fly. Hipparchus lay on the crescent bench, pulled Mara down beside him, and tucked a goose-down pillow beneath both their heads. He began to hum a 4-note epicyclic rondeau in the exact tempo of a sphere rocked by a geometer who has forgotten the world exists. The stars answered, their tiny lights leaning toward the center of the room until the entire observatory was tilted toward sleep. The dome of midnight blue lowered an inch, then 2, until the painted sky brushed their foreheads with the cool kiss of unhurried centuries. They drifted. There was no walking now, only drifting, along a path of moonlit sand that curled upward like the inside of an armillary sphere. The path opened into a smaller chamber where Ptolemy's lost harmonics hovered in fresco so fresh the pigment still breathed. Ptolemy reclined on a bed of midnight blue velvet, his hair a river of silver ink. The swan curled against his heart like a living quill. Around them, 4 smaller swans floated on their backs, tracing perfect circles that drifted upward and became new constellations in the observatory sky. Hipparchus knelt, gathered 3 arcs, and wove them into a crown that settled on Mara's brow with the weight of a sigh.
Each arc pulsed once, releasing a note in the epicyclic rondeau. The sleeping Ptolemy answered with a tiny snore that sounded exactly like the Aegean at the moment the wind stops. Hipparchus lay beside her on the velvet bed, one arm beneath her head, the other resting lightly on the golden swan. He began to hum the missing 3rd part, and every star in the new constellations dimmed to embers. The velvet bed lifted an inch off the sandy floor, rocked once, twice, 3 times, and became a sphere of warm midnight blue floating on a sea of liquid lullabies. The swans folded their wings and curled into the folds of Mara's nightgown like friendly kittens. The sandy floor smoothed itself into satin. The dome of midnight blue exhaled one long, luxurious breath and rolled over in its sleep. Hipparchus whispered the final secret of the ancient sky. Every circle I ever drew was a promise to someone who had forgotten how to close her eyes. He tucked the goose feather behind both their ears, began to hum the rondeau in reverse, and every star answered until the observatory was a choir of stellar hush. The sphere rocked, the constellations dimmed, the night exhaled and tucked them in. When Mara awoke, Rhodes had folded itself into the goose feather now tucked behind her ear. The feather was warm, fragrant, humming. On her brow, the arc crown had become a single silver droplet that smelt of warm parchment and distant bells. She smiled, rolled onto her side, and slept again, deeper this time, because Hipparchus had taught the equinox her name, and the swans had taught it how to pronounce the hush between heartbeats. The equinox is dreaming, the swans are asleep, and Mara's night now contains an entire sphere of unmeasured distances. Next, we will sail west to the stone circles of Callanish, where the Hebridean sky lowers itself like a blanket of warm peat, and every standing stone is a lullaby carved in Lewisian gneiss. One quiet nod, and the Aegean will open its velvet sail. The goose feather behind Mara's ear unfurled into a single silver sail that caught the Aegean's last breath and carried her westward over a sea of liquid peat, until the moon itself lowered like a warm blanket across the outer Hebrides. She arrived barefoot on the springy turf of Callanish, the standing stones no longer cold sentinels, but gentle giants reclining in a circle of mossy sleep, their Lewisian Geis faces softened by centuries of rain that tasted of heather and lullabies. At the circle's heart stood a woman in a cloak of midnight blue wool, barefoot, her silver hair braided with tiny moonstones that chimed softly whenever the wind forgot to blow. She was not named in any chronicle, yet Mara knew her as the keeper of the 13 moons, the one who taught the stones to sing Compline. In her hands, she carried a single peat ember blowing the exact rose of a peat fire hearth at bedtime, and a tiny crystal bowl filled with liquid starlight skimmed from the locans at the moment the Pleiades touched the horizon. "Tonight," she whispered, voice the hush of wool-brushing wool, "we measure only the dreams that fit inside a single breath." She dipped 2 fingers into the bowl, touched them to the ember, and painted a tiny rose circle on the air above Mara's heart. The circle trembled, rose, and became a miniature stone circle no larger than a child's hand, its 13 stones humming a lullaby in the language of wind over Machar. The keeper caught the circle on the tip of her finger, rolled it gently until it became a tiny sleeper, no larger than a sparrow, wrapped in a blanket of midnight blue wool and cradled by a standing stone whose face had turned into a pillow of warm peat.
She placed the sleeper on Mara's collarbone. It sighed once, curled against her skin, and began to rock her with the rhythm of the Hebridean tide, slowed to the pace of a grandmother's breathing. She opened a woven creel and spilled a handful of smaller rose circles onto the turf. Each circle landed without sound and became another moonstone, until the avenue of stones was full of soft rose lights, floating in slow motion, like fireflies too sleepy to fly. The keeper lay on the springy turf, pulled Mara down beside her, and tucked a goose-down pillow of swansdown and heather beneath both their heads. She began to hum a 4-note keening in the exact tempo of a peat fire settling into ember, and the stones answered, their ancient voices leaning toward the center of the circle until the entire avenue was tilted toward sleep. The sky of midnight blue lowered an inch, then 2, until the painted constellations brushed their foreheads with the cool kiss of unhurried centuries. They drifted. There was no walking now, only drifting, along the avenue of moonlit stones that curled outward, like the inside of a nautilus shell carved from peat. The path opened into the central chamber where the tallest stone stood, but tonight it had lain down on its side and become a bed of warm Gianni Ehas S, its surface polished by millennia of rain into the exact curve of a reclining body. Around it, 4 smaller stones floated on their backs, humming lullabies that drifted upward and became new constellations in the Hebridean sky. The keeper knelt, gathered 3 moonstones, and wove them into a crown that settled on Mara's brow with the weight of a sigh. Each moonstone pulsed once, releasing a note in the keening. The sleeping tallest stone answered with a tiny snore that sounded exactly like the Atlantic at the moment the tide turns. The keeper lay beside her on the Gianni Es bed, one arm beneath her head, the other resting lightly on the rose circle.
She began to hum the missing third part, and every star in the new constellations dimmed to embers. The nice bed lifted an inch off the turf, rocked once, twice, 3 times,
and became a coracle of warm peat floating on a locan of liquid lullabies. The moonstones folded their glow and curled into the folds of Mara's nightgown like friendly selkies. The turf smoothed itself into satin. The sky of midnight blue exhaled one long, luxurious breath and rolled over in its sleep. The keeper whispered the final secret of the 13 moons. Every stone I ever raised was a promise to someone who had forgotten how to close her eyes. She tucked the peat ember behind both their ears, began to hum the keening in reverse, and every moonstone answered until the avenue was a choir of rose-lit hush. The coracle rocked. The constellations dimmed. The night exhaled and tucked them in. When Mara woke, Kalanesh had folded itself into the peat ember now tucked behind her ear. The ember was warm, fragrant, humming. On her brow, the moonstone crown had become a single rose droplet that smelled of warm wool and distant bells. She smiled, rolled onto her side, and slept again. Deeper this time, because the keeper had taught the tide her name, and the stones had taught it how to pronounce the hush between heartbeats. The tide is dreaming. The moonstones are asleep, and Mara's night now contains an entire avenue of rose-lit lullabies. Next, we will sail south to the Nazca Desert, where the great geoglyphs open their eyes only to close them again. And every line in the sand is a blanket stitched from starlight and warm pampa wind. One quiet nod, and the Atlantic will open its velvet coracle.
The peat ember behind Mara's ear flared once, rose gold, and the exact hush of a desert wind that has forgotten how to blow. And the coracle of warm peat dissolved into a single grain of Nazca sand that slipped between her lips like warm starlight. She opened her eyes inside the great geoglyph of the hummingbird, but the bird was no longer etched in limestone. It was reclining on a bed of soft pampa grass, wings folded into blankets of midnight blue wool, its beak tucked beneath one wing like a child who has finally remembered how to nap. At the bird's heart stood a woman in a cloak of woven vicuña, the color of moonlit sand. Barefoot, her silver hair braided with tiny quartz crystals that chimed softly whenever the wind remembered to breathe. She was not named in any chronicle, yet Mara knew her as the weaver of the lines, the one who taught the desert to dream in straight, gentle strokes. In her hands, she carried a single quartz needle glowing the exact rose of a desert dawn, and a tiny crystal bowl filled with liquid starlight skimmed from the pampa at the exact moment the Southern Cross touches the horizon. "Tonight," she whispered, voice the hush of sand brushing sand, "we draw only the lines that forget to end." She dipped the needle, touched it to the bowl, and painted a tiny rose line on the air above Mara's heart. The line trembled, rose, and became a miniature Nazca spider, no larger than a child's hand, its 8 legs curled into perfect paragraphs of sleep. The weaver caught the spider on the tip of her finger, rolled it gently until it became a tiny sleeper no larger than a sparrow, wrapped in a blanket of moonlit sand and cradled by a hummingbird, whose wings had turned into pages of warm pampa grass. She placed the sleeper on Mara's collarbone. It sighed once, curled against her skin, and began to rock her with the rhythm of the desert wind slowed to the pace of a grandmother's breathing. She opened a woven chuspa and spilled a handful of smaller rose lines onto the pampa. Each line landed without sound and became another quartz crystal until the entire geoglyph was full of soft rose lights floating in slow motion like fireflies too sleepy to fly.
The weaver lay on the bed of pampa grass, pulled Mara down beside her, and tucked a goose-down pillow of vicuña wool and starlight beneath both their heads. She began to hum a four-note huayno in the exact tempo of a condor gliding over the Andes at sunset, and the geoglyphs answered, their ancient voices leaning toward the center of the bird until the entire desert was tilted toward sleep. The sky of midnight blue lowered an inch, then two, until the painted constellations brushed their foreheads with the cool kiss of unhurried millennia. They drifted. There was no walking now, only drifting, along a path of moonlit sand that curled outward like the inside of a spiral galaxy carved from quartz. The path opened into the central chamber where the great monkey geoglyph lay on its side, tail curled into a perfect circle, eyes closed in the small, secret smile of someone who has never needed to wake up. Around it, four smaller geoglyphs floated on their backs: spider, condor, tree, flower, humming lullabies that drifted upward and became new constellations in the Nazca sky. The weaver knelt, gathered 3 quartz crystals, and wove them into a crown that settled on Mara's brow with the weight of a sigh. Each crystal pulsed once, releasing a note in the huayno. The sleeping monkey answered with a tiny snore that sounded exactly like the pampa wind at the moment the stars stopped moving. The weaver lay beside her, on the monkey's tail, one arm beneath her head, the other resting lightly on the rose line. She began to hum the missing third part, and every star in the new constellations dimmed to embers. The monkey's tail lifted an inch off the pampa, rocked once, twice, 3 times, and became a hammock of warm vicuña wool floating on a sea of liquid lullabies. The quartz crystals folded their glow and curled into the folds of Mara's nightgown like friendly viscaches. The pampa grass smoothed itself into satin. The sky of midnight blue exhaled one long, luxurious breath and rolled over in its sleep. The weaver whispered the final secret of the Nazca lines. Every line I ever drew was a promise to someone who had forgotten how to close her eyes. She tucked the quartz needle behind both their ears, began to hum the huayno in reverse, and every crystal answered until the desert was a choir of rose-lit hush. The hammock rocked, the constellations dimmed, the night exhaled and tucked them in. When Mara woke, the Nazca Desert had folded itself into the quartz needle now tucked behind her ear. The needle was warm, fragrant, humming. On her brow, the crystal crown had become a single rose droplet that smelled of warm wool and distant condor wings. She smiled, rolled onto her side, and slept again, deeper this time, because the weaver had taught the wind her name, and the geoglyphs had taught it how to pronounce the hush between heartbeats.